And hi, Malhar. How are you? Good evening to you. You're on mute, ma'am. You're still on mute. All right.
I'm glad I was muted for a bit. Good evening, Ashok. How are you?
I am good. I'm very excited because we are in the month of April now. And for all our fans who have logged in for our show today, welcome to the month of April, where the theme is about value-driven relevance. For those of us who have logged in for the first time, what is this show about? Leadership in Flow Asia. We speak to leaders within Asia, obviously, right? Where we get their insights and ideas about personal growth, leadership growth, and business growth. And today, Malhar, we have someone very exciting, right? Johnathon. Johnathon, whose name has been spelled wrongly by his right friends. He's a VP HR for Asia Pacific for Bradnick, Asia Pacific itself. And he's very passionate about HR. And that's why today's topic is about HR powers businesses. So, Malhar, let's bring him in.
Ta-da! Got it.
Hi, Johnathon. How are you, sir?
Good. And good evening to all our audience and also to Mala and Ashok. Thanks for inviting me here.
No, thank you for saying yes. We have had a fun time in our pre-show discussions, and I'm sure the guests will be having a balling good time learning from your deep insights and experiences. Yeah. Okay, let me start the ball rolling, right? So we are talking about yourself, Johnathon, and I know you love HR, right? So let's start by understanding how did you come to the HR space itself?
That's interesting because, from my own perspective, I'm actually not a fan of HR.
Not a fan?
Yeah, I'm not, because you see, I don't really like politics in the first place. And, when you deal with humans, you ask yourself, should I be a politician? I don't know. But to a certain extent, like a fair bit of friends in the HR space, we are accidental HR. So what happens is that I was actually trained in logistics and human resources. And as part of the internship, I actually went to logistics. Yeah. And guess what? When I was asked to make a choice between logistics and human resource, a logistic boss actually throws a spanner on the floor and says, look, choose logistics. See what I do to the spanner. I just throw it on the floor, and guess what? It bounced back, but it won't hit you back. If you speak to a human being, guess what? There will be thousands of response. So don't choose human resource, choose logistics. And while we are trying to make our decision, the company decided to outsource logistics to 3PL. So I don't have a choice. I'm in human resource. And that is the starting of my whole career in HR. I try to get out of it once in a while, but I didn't manage to, because at the end of the day, I didn't find a function, or rather, I don't even see this as a function, as a subject that is fun. The ability for us to actually change people's life, change the life of businesses, and create an impact to whoever we touch. So I think that's fundamental why I fell in love with this topic. It's not even a topic to me. In fact, in my pastime, you can say weekends or whatever you say, that I do volunteer work for HR as well. So I'm doing advisory work. Wow. Yeah. But as long as it's human resource, I don't mind. But if it's some other stuff, maybe not. Okay, let me think about it. It's fine.
Okay, so this is interesting. So your boss or whoever at that point in time threw the spanner on the floor and demonstrated to you the spanner is not spinning back to you and hitting your face, and you said, "Wow, okay, that's exciting. I don't think I want people shouting at me. I might as well go for the spanner." But today you've fallen in love with the fact that people speak up. They've got views, and they got different viewpoints, and to the extent that you even volunteer. Now, so obviously, you became an accidental HR, like what you mentioned, but there must be something in you that keeps you in that space, right? It keeps
Yes.
driving you. So I'm very curious as to what keeps driving your passion for HR. Why are you still in that space, even when people are at you and you're volunteering on weekends? There must be something about you, Jonathan.
It's simply one word, right? It's about the ability to make a difference. Small impact and big impact. And a lot of people have forgotten the fact what is HR about. It's quite interesting because if you start looking at what is being shared along last couple of weeks, it's about HR is not about HR. And for once, I think a lot of audience here can relate to me because a lot of companies actually start off from Europe and Americas headquarters. They have a small business in Asia. Yeah. And typically in global meetings, guess what? APAC, there's only one or two representatives.
Okay.
Yeah, I and me, and maybe one more. But when you go into a global meeting, you cannot afford to be quiet. You have to be atypical Asians, brought your points across, and you realize that if you can do that, not for your own sake, you tend to bring investment and resources to this region that you care about. And
Okay.
because of that, you see people develop. I've seen people growing up, getting a foothold, making APAC proud. And for one of my greatest love is when we first started out as a region, we are like the fourth smallest region. Yeah, the fourth smallest region. By the time I left, we are the second largest region. And it has an impact. It creates meaning and purpose to a lot of people which we take care of. Yeah. And the other reason why I find it very impactful as human resources sometimes is life is about unfairness. Sorry, there's no fairness in
Okay.
the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we look at in terms of a lot of mergers and acquisitions that take place and during selection exercise, you realize that half of the time people who have formed tends to stand out. They can talk. It's
Mhm.
their ability to talk gets them a job. And sometimes people who can actually do the work and get things done don't get the job just because of an 1 hour interview. Is that fair? I don't know. But in our career, if we can help this group of people shines,
Mm.
what does it do? It makes an impact. I give a very simple example, even in this current company. We have a new CEO 3 years ago who just came to town. 3, 4 years ago, he came to town. And then he is going a worldwide trip trying to meet talents.
Okay.
All right. And we have internal discussions. And I have someone who tells me, Jonathan, just let the CEO fly by Asia. Let him see what he sees. And I'm like, is that really what you want to do? Because my discussion with the business is I need to showcase Asia Got Talent. So
Mm.
what we did was we actually trained them on some skills that allow them to be confident, to share the perspective. And guess what? The CEO left and said, Asia Got Talent. Isn't that
Right.
what we want? The moment you are able to say we have the talent pool, that's when resources comes to Asia. Yeah. And when resources comes to Asia, guess what? There are more things I can do for people which we care about. And you see people grow. Isn't that amazing? If you look at it, that's organization wide. I share a very simple example
Mm.
on what happens to me maybe about 10 years ago when I did a tour in China. Okay, because of who I am in short form, not saying that Johnathon is great, but by the position which we hold, they got a regional sales manager to pick me up
Okay.
from the airport. Yeah. And interestingly, in that short conversation, he was telling me he's very busy. He fly, as a regional sales person, he flies from airport to airport. That is something quite interesting. And then he said he don't have time. And I said, look, I'm doing a regional job. I need to have interaction as well. And yet I can find time. Why? Because I says, look, during my time, I asked him a very simple question. When you're at the airport, what do you do?
Mm.
He says, open my laptop, check my phone. And I said, can you use that time to give a friend a call? He says, oh, it didn't cross across the mind, because what happened to most people is that we contact each other only when there is celebration of birth,
Right.
celebration or let's say anniversaries, or when something unfortunate happened.
Sure.
Correct? Or when you have a request to ask people, can you lend me some of your time? There's always a request behind any call. But I says, look, take that away. Yeah. And just give anybody a call and just say, how are you? Without agenda.
Mm.
He did that. Until now, he found that small little piece of information shared changed his life forever. And until now, like it or not, I don't know, he still contact me just to wish me Happy Chinese New Year.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, and you just and the wordings he actually gave it to me, a Chinese poem. He gave it to me when I left the company. It's very meaningful. He says, wherever you go, you will be able to create the waves. It's very, very nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very
and
good.
and you just imagine, organization front, we can create a difference.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to talk about that a little bit because
yeah,
what I'm hearing consistently from you is this is my paraphrasing of what I'm hearing, is you're very passionate about giving people their voice,
yes,
right?
it is.
Helping them shine,
Yes,
helping them realize who they truly are. That's what I'm
yeah,
hearing. I'm hearing that you're driving to make those connections with people.
it is.
And in the beginning, you mentioned something. You said HR is not HR. You said
Correct.
there's an early discussion about that. But what do you exactly mean by that? HR is not HR.
The interesting part about us is we have limited our views on what HR is all about.
Okay.
Why do I say that? It's because you see, half of the time we say admin, or rather today there's a process. We drive out the process. What I call traditional supply HR. We are supplying because our boss asked us to supply.
Right.
Okay, so we are supplying HR tools because we need to supply HR tools. The interesting part a lot of us didn't realize is that human resource is not just about the HR tools. It's more than that. It's ability to say what does a business need. The ability to act and then have the courage to say what we need to do. One of the very interesting example I have when I first started out as during I would say it's the only top HR job in the company. You can call it a C-suite role, etc. And when I first came in to roll out policies, my CEO only has one question for me.
Okay.
Can
What's
you
that?
tell me where this organization is in terms of organization life cycle? And how are you going to use your HR tools to make us successful?
Wow.
Very interesting. Because you see, it starts taking things from a very different perspective. Correct? Because we say HR should be good in com, should be good in benefits, should be good in maybe organization design, etc. We are good in everything. The reality is no HR person can say that we know everything well, because it's a lot of science and art. The challenge with us is we do not recognize where the organization needs and use it sparingly to make the organization successful. And that is very, very interesting segment. And since then, when I have my HR people, I ask them a very simple question. When they ask me, when do I consider them successful? And my answer to them is when business invites you to see a customer.
Oh wow. Okay.
So people will say, I saw somebody says walk the talk. Yes, it's easy to say that as a HR lead, right? When I came to Brandtech, the same thing. And I said, look, they asked me, I says, look, if you want to consider you successful, customers, our salespeople, our commercial people has to bring you out and visit.
Nice,
Okay.
nice.
And they will say, look, Johnathon, you say a lot. Are you doing it? Correct,
Nice.
because it's about walking the talk. So in the
Right.
first 2-3 months, I actually visited one country,
Mhm.
and at the start, it's entertainment to me, right? They put HR in one room, then they put commercial in one room. They don't have a choice not to entertain me because I need to be there.
Right, right.
The interesting part is halfway through that dinner, even though we met for the first time, they brought me to see the customer. We have a chat around it about the business, and also interestingly, we see that the customer can be potentially one day my candidate.
Right, right. Got it, got it.
Yeah,
Right.
it is amazing if you start to do that. And if I can do that, that means I'm not putting something, or rather a concept that's fairy tale.
Mm.
All
Right,
right.
right.
And in my current company, I have business partners that are already able to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. And don't talk about 2023. When I was in my previous company in 2009, 2010, my HR manager has managed to do that.
Right.
It's not a dream. The limits of HR is as much as we create. If we
Right.
look at the HR Harvard Business Review article,
Mm-hmm.
the closest fit in terms of profiling to a CEO is actually CHRO,
Right.
not the CFO, it's CHRO, because
CHRO.
it takes people to run the business. And it's not by
Exactly.
words. Yeah, a lot of people say, yeah, we need people. The question is, are we designing something that allow people to flourish?
Right. I think that is the most important thing. No, so I hear this very. I know I'm going to pass it question to Mala because she's itching to ask a question. But I just want to summarize what you just said, which is extremely important, extremely, extremely important. Because I started by asking you what do you mean by HR is not HR, and thank you for giving us a very clear understanding that yes, there's been a mindset from a very long time that HR plays a very supply side HR. I know you didn't use this word, but I'm going to say that now you've moved to demand side, and demand side meaning, right? Do you understand the business? Are you
Yep.
seeing the customers? Because are you getting the real pulse of what the P&L will be like for the business? And in the same way, what you're mentioning is yes, the P&L is important, but the financials are not the only way to drive the business. What we need to do is to focus on the people. We need to design a place where people bring their best efforts in to drive the financials and the business outcomes, right? So that's what I'm
Yep.
hearing about what HR is not HR. Move away from supply side, move towards demand side. Yes, Muller, I know you have a question to ask Jonathan, so I'll just back off for now.
I was just going to let you do it because I'm coughing. So I hope I don't cough through. I really enjoyed. So I've taken down so many quotes from you, Jonathan. I have to thank you for that. But I think the one thing that really resonated with me is when you say when business invites you to meet the customer, then you're successful, right? So, in your experience, what do you think as HR people or as leaders? Actually, it doesn't have to be HR. This is leadership in Flow Asia, right? So, if I'm a leader and I'm watching you speak, what is that one question I can ask myself as a leader, right? So that I get invited by the business to meet the customer.
Okay, I think this is something which everybody knows. I don't think I need to say. If I said it, I think everybody is aware. What keeps you awake at night? What keeps us awake at night? Very interesting question, but very simple and yet very powerful. Yeah, they all keep awake for different reasons. And if we can understand the fundamentals, then your decision to work on a demand side of HR changes. I have been a business partner as well for about 5 different businesses, and every businesses, even though it's the same company, operates on a different organization life cycle. One of them has monopoly. When you have a monopoly, you do things differently. Yeah. The interesting part is if we start understanding that and ability to help them to be successful, why not? At one company, we even went to the extent that to help a Southeast Asia company because he wanted to publish, the company wants to move beyond their home country in ASEAN. And they need some possible advice on how to do things. And we say as HR, if their HR department wants some guidance, I'm willing to share. I'm willing to share to my customers, HR people, on how they can expand beyond their shops. Why not? We create value for them. The question is about value. And for us to know the value, that was something which I practiced many, many years ago. Whenever we bring a HR person in, interestingly, I get them to map out value chain in 3 months. Value chain of the business in 3 months. All right? Because that is fundamentally a game changer. I give a very simple example. When HR receive a job description, what do? We post it out. Correct? And then we say, okay, we post it out, invite, we interview behavioral characteristics. But do we really understand the business? A marketing guy for an industrial segment and a marketing person for a FMCG market, we can all call them marketing. The interesting part is behavior, knowledge, and what makes them successful is different. So if we can't even map that out, how can we help the business to be successful? Because we simply do not understand the business. And that becomes very, very important for me. Yeah. And here, how do we know whether you are demand or supply is very simple. You have your office in the room, in the office, right? Sorry, you have a room in the office. And if people come to HR just to say, I need to hire, I need to fire, or I need clarity on a policy, then we are not doing our job. We are totally not doing our job. But if they can come in and say, let's have a sparring idea on how we turn this thing around, it is a different game. It's very different. It is, can we do it? The answer is yes. Because in 2009, 2010, we already in HR do what we call workforce planning. And this is something very interesting, Gary. We all know org charts, right? All org charts are done by HR, correct?
Okay.
When we talk about HR, we do not do organization charts with names. That's never what I do. Okay. We put organization, we put the name, the position, but we put revenues and key customer in the org chart. We make the org chart live, because that is when I can present and have a debate with my counterparts, because they will say, oh, he had got 5 people under him, so he needs to be amazing. But I'm going to say, look, the revenue size is so small. Is that really your talent? Can you make it? We have a very different discussion. And my point is this: tools are tools. How do we actually utilize the tools which we have by creating connections? So you ask, it's the same thing. HR does org chart. How many of us does org chart by putting relevant revenue figures inside and also key customers inside? That creates conversations. So the interesting part about us is storytelling, conversation, and making data alive.
Wow. Wow. This is very sorry, Malar. I know you got a follow-up question, but I'm just totally amazed with this. Because of I like the way you use or at least try and identify the behavioral characters and competencies of people by first getting them to go through the value chain analysis of the business itself. And within 3 months itself,
Yes.
right? Oh wow! I mean that, and I like this whole idea about the organizational chart based on revenue and key customers. I think that's so important, because you're absolutely right. That helps you bring the conversations to different level. Very,
It is.
very different. Yeah.
It is. And why I say 3 months, in fact, for senior HR leaders,
Hmm.
I don't think people give me any chance more than 2 weeks. Why do I say that? It's because very simple. Everybody has a perception of HR, like it or not.
Fair enough. Fair
It's
enough.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And if they bring in a new HR lead, and the first 2 weeks conversation is, I'm still speaking to a newbie who is learning the business.
Mm.
How much would they share with you? Yeah. But alternatively, just imagine this. Okay. If in 2 to 3 weeks' time, we are able to already subtly pick up some of the key characteristics
Mhm.
of the business and give it back to them, the more they think they will know, the more they will share. Agreed?
Right.
And where does this skill sets come from? HR interview skills. We always love to interview people and then we took what we learned from them and throw it to the next candidate and see whether they can do the job. Why aren't we using these skill sets to ourselves?
Okay.
We
Okay.
have a lot of skill sets that we can play. Are we doing it correctly? I already give 2 examples. The first one is the org chart,
Mm.
correct? We have been doing org chart. What stops us from just putting an extra 2 or 3 staff inside and change the whole game? Same things goes for learning the business. If
Mm.
I have interview skills, I know how to suss out things. What stops us from using the same skills for our business?
Right.
Yeah, you can do that during onboarding. That's what I do during onboarding. Onboarding is for me to learn and give back. If not, nobody will talk to you. We have to remember one very interesting element in life, which is the biggest FM channel we have.
FM.
What is in it for me?
Okay.
Why
Right.
do they need to
Fair
talk to
enough.
a
Fair
HR
enough.
person if the HR person have no value? After a while, you're gone. And once you pass by a couple of months, they will say this to you. Hello, this is another same similar type of HR people. Once once that impression is there, you can't run away. So there's a third part of HR. What do we say? We don't manage facts. HR never manage facts. We manage perception because perception is reality.
Okay. Can you give us an example of when you had to be able to manage facts versus perceptions and it worked well? Any
Very
stories that you can
simple.
share?
It,
Yep.
it, it, it does. It does. Why do I say that? Is look, and let's make it very, very simple. Okay. I used to have a talent in one country. All right. And whatever you talk about it, it was ruled out because his way of communicating to a senior leader didn't came across that well.
Mm.
Okay. So what happens? Once that perception is stuck, you're gone. Okay. No matter what data you put there, things don't work. So what I do is I have to spend other time creating perception for him. And it works, although it takes me 1 year to change people's perception. Yeah, it takes time. But that makes a lot of difference. I give another very simple example about HR, right? We all know what is happening on the ground. And the biggest supporters of information flow is people whom we deem not necessary with power. Example, receptionists, our clerks, and all these people, they tend to be what we call the best influencers you have. because I'm an HR lead as well, right? So I tell what my boss asked me to tell. The world is beautiful. If I'm the employee looking at this, any message from your boss and from corporate, what do we look at? We wear a pair of lens, because we always say, as an employee, we always say, what's the motive of the boss? Is there something behind that wants to tell us? Can I really trust him? And as HR person, we have two roles. If we take on as a corporate, we try to deliver message. But on their hand, the receiver will always say, are you really telling the truth? So what do? We shape perception. And that's what I do. I shape perception on the ground by utilizing what we call influencers. Because a peer's impression and perception is more important than facts. Not that I'm saying facts are not important. I'm just saying that we use facts, we help people to pass on the message, because perception becomes reality. It's not a new science. We know that. The challenge is, are we as HR people utilizing what we know? That is something I realized. We have a lot of tools at hand. That's what makes me very excited. We have a lot of tools and a lot of skill sets as HR practitioners. Are we utilizing that? That's the biggest issue.
Okay, so Renita Joseph has written a few comments, and one of it, she thinks HR is business and not on the sidelines. You need to be not just get the bottom line, but also the top line. So pretty much like what you are saying, Johnathon. Yeah.
The only thing is I disagree with the word I think. Because it's not I think. We can and we have. Because we need to believe in ourselves.
That's true.
Like what I say, a lot of times the limit is what we put on ourselves. Can we co-steer the business? Answer is yes. Have I been in a situation whereby HR own business strategies? My answer to you is yes as well. Have I have friends who turn from HR into CEOs? My answer to you is a yes as well.
Right.
So it's doable. The question for us is, how do we look at the factors, manage top line? Why is that important? Like what she says, right? Because very simple. You can grow revenue, you can expand your expenses. That means revenue goes up, expenses go up. It's easy sell. If you just focus on expenses cut, what will you end up? You will reach a time whereby there's nothing else to cut.
That's true. That's true.
Okay? And that doesn't help. But we need to guide and coach our people on where they can reach. If they can bring in more revenue, help them to find things that make them successful, business as a whole goes up. When business goes up, there's more relaxed atmosphere in the rest of the team, and then we can do something about it. So let's focus on what are the value drivers of any business, help the business be successful. Because with that, then you can neglect the rest of the expenses. That's life.
Right. No, thank you very much, Johnathon, because I want to get into the tools, but before I get into tools, right, because you've given us a lot to think about how to drive the success in a business. And I want to get into the tools, but before that, it's something that's been at the back of my mind, say, you know what, I need to go back to Johnathon's past a bit. What I mean by that is, I'm trying to understand what was that pivotal moment, right, that got you to think about, hey, you know what? There are these tools there. We can make a difference. So I'm just trying to understand, what was that one point in your life that turned it around for you and said, yes, this is what I need to do deeper?
Okay, I would say it started pretty much mid of the career, to a certain extent. And it's just that one action add on to another action. The first time we look at it is when we are trying to manage merger and acquisition. We brought in different people, and interestingly, guess what? People never says that HR is admin is one thing. They say something. We are practitioners. We are also human. It shifted the way we thought. We didn't realize we can actually create a difference in people's life. When the person is leaving and yet we have a conversation, everybody don't like to lose talent. That's us. We don't like. None of us like. But if a talent needs to go and is for the sake of that talent, guess what? Let the person go. And you manage it nicely, and guess what? The impression of HR is very different because we have never forgot the humans inside the word human resource.
Right.
I think that was the first time. The second time was relatively also interesting because of what we have done, help the business shape and move industrial marketing to consumer marketing to an extent, and help to drive some stuff up. During one of the leadership meeting, the leadership board, actually the leader of the region actually tells us, the leadership committee, saying that I make a mistake. Okay. Traditional companies, when it comes to leadership meetings, they will say revenues, correct? They will say operations, or rather than they will come to finance. Then the last is human resource. By
right.
agenda is standard topic because we need to be there because we need to be there. What makes the difference for us is when he said, I make a mistake in front of all of us. And he said, the reason why I said that is because business should not be the number one part of the agenda. People needs to be number one, then followed by business. You know how big the impact it creates to us and the team. You know, we in HR realize we neared it. Because for business people to put HR first as the first bullet point for discussion,
Yes.
it creates impact for us.
That's true. That's very true. That's true. That means what I can hear is that's probably because of I mean, I can imagine if I was one of the business leaders in your organization with that kind of passion that you had, I can see how you have to be the first point of agenda in that sense. You see, you bring a lot of that. But what I'm hearing from the ground, like what you mentioned earlier, when you saw someone had to leave the organization, you had important conversations with them. That even when
Yes.
they left, they left happily in a certain way, or at least more energetically. And more often than not, I'm hearing horror stories from the other side. I've personally witnessed also in my past corporate life where they were letting go of people quietly. The HR comes in, from a different country. Suddenly he or she is there early morning on a Friday, then quietly inviting people in. Then you see people crying, so there's a lot of drama around that, and then you have certain perceptions around HR because it doesn't become human resources, it becomes human remains. They have a different viewpoints and the way they do it. So I see that you are making a lot of difference in that sense. So how can therefore HR create a culture of success for people, for themselves, and for the teams that they drive? What are your thoughts around that?
Okay, before we go into that, I think the interesting part you have just said about regional HR sometimes flying around and then terminating people. Yeah. And then, but I've been in that shoe before, in that sense that I run the region, I flew in to do termination as well. And the greatest fear of the country leader or the business leader is because the person terminating is from overseas. However, if there is a local lawsuit, the regional HR is not involved. So that means I terminate, I create problem for the employee, I create problem for the business. Okay, that is always something which we don't think about. What we have managed to gain success is that we have managed to always do it for them so that there is no further consequences. And that's when business respect you. We are here to partner you, solve your problems. Okay. Our job in human resource is to look at human resource. Okay. So that the commercial folks can do their commercial duty in peace. I think that is something which I always look at it. Let the best fit people do their job. If we don't, everybody they will tell you they are all HR experts. Okay, I think the interesting part about us is a lot of time HR colleagues of ours, HR colleagues of ours are limited. Firstly, most HR practitioners we are introverts. Number one. Interestingly, why we are there, I don't know. I'm also one of those. If you can find meaning and purpose and move our train skills to train extrovert, all right, and believe the wider dreams of how we can benefit people, we can make a difference. It is limited by our own beliefs.
Right.
I think that is the fundamental of where things go wrong. It is self-belief of what this function can do, and can make a difference. And as we go through our lives and start making differences to individual people or organization, it brings back confidence. And the more confidence you bring on yourself, the more you believe you can make a difference. I think that is fundamental. It starts from ourselves.
Right. Right. Okay, no, fair enough. Thank you very much for that. I know earlier on I mentioned that I'm hoarding the show, I know, because the mother is having some cough issues. So I'm just pulling off the questions, right? She's happy with that. Earlier on I was talking about, I want to revisit the tools. You said HR has got many tools and we can use it to advantage. You've already spoken about just a very simple org chart, can you share with us another example of a tool that you've used to help push behaviors?
Very, very simple. Yeah, we love retention, right?
Retention,
Everybody
yes.
loves retention. Retention is a favorite topic. When we want to retain people, what do? Pay money. Is that right? I think so. Yeah. Everything is about money.
Mhm.
Okay. And at one stage, companies simply don't have the money to do mass retention.
Okay.
That is not possible. So I have a situation in China at a point in time. It's relatively interesting, whereby when multinational goes in, because of the scarcity of talent, we just simply pay more.
Mhm.
That's life. So we decided to say, look, I have key people which I need to retain. All right. And the first instant response from any HR people on the ground is, come, let's see how many months of bonus we can do a retention and the person will stay. Okay. What caught us thinking is that that particular individual came with a different purpose. And
Okay.
what I did with you see, if you look at individual tools, retention is compensation, correct?
Okay.
Very interesting. Organization behavior is OD, or business partnering.
Okay.
What we did is we put compensation together with coaching
Mm.
and create a tool which is both with monetary awards and also way of life. I think all of you have heard of way of life. It's a free tool. If you Google it, way of life is there. We
Okay.
actually create a tool and create what we call individualized retention questions and policies. What we did is create a tool out of that. And when we got the local HR to have a conversation with the talent, guess what? He's not staying here for the money. He stayed here because he came from a family who has the same type of business, and he just want to fulfill his grandfather's dream in being successful in this particular field. So he
Right.
is driven by learning and development in that space. As long as you can give him that, he will stay. So the question here is, do we understand people well enough? And
Mm.
you see, in the olden times, we say compensation is compensation COE.
Right.
Organization development is organization development COE. Let's put all the things we know in one and we can create a difference. And
Sure.
at that point, I think it's very early stage in 2010, we created what we call individualized retention tool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can see. I can see. I can thank you for sharing that tool as an example, because it was not just the compensation tool, but also the coaching tool, and then bringing it together, right? No, I like your creative way for looking for solutions to help understand people better. So I'm going to take a step back now, because as you know, if unless you've been in on Mars in the last 3 years, right? Um, Earth as we know it have gone through COVID,
Yes.
right? And yes, a lot of HRs were put in the spot, and they had to rise up to that occasion from 2020 onwards, right? Fair enough, you know. However, I personally feel that we are coming to the stage where the business and revenue pressures are now mounting, and the focus is totally on that. And I still feel that the way we used to operate in 2019 cannot be the way forward.
Thank you.
What do you see HR's role in the way forward, and how should they be reframing the way forward?
Interestingly, why I said thank you is simply because HR agenda has never changed.
Okay.
Why? Even when we started COVID, I lead the COVID actions to an extent in Asia Pac. Guess who I staff under me? Supply chain and QC. Because I do not want HR to be known for COVID management. We have a
Okay, fair enough.
better purpose than that. We need to understand strategy. We need to
Mm,
understand our business purpose. We need to understand what create revenue and also how we impact people. COVID
mm,
management just happened to be part of it.
right.
It should not be the item that represents human resource. So from the angle, I've never make HR looks as the lead for it. I can be the lead. My people are not in the lead. So if you ask me what has changed, I have not changed anything. I
Mm,
still get them to continue focus what they do best. Train their skill sets to help the business be successful. So no change for me
mm,
because COVID pandemics comes and go. I've been through life of SARS, MERS, whatever you can think of.
right.
And if HR is going to be known only during pandemic, then I think we need to do a bit of reflection.
A lot of reflection, actually. No, thank you very much for saying that, Jonathan, because you see, you have a very clear, deep clarity about the role of HR. It's about really helping the business be successful. So you need to understand the business language, what the pressures are. And that's why you said, even during COVID, you're not going to be known as HR, COVID management experts in that sense. You know? Your focus is still about the business. Where do I lead the business? How do I now organize the people to be able to drive the business, you know?
Yes.
And that's a very strategic way of thinking, right? So a spin-off question from there would be, there are people who would be coming into the HR space this period of time, 2023 onwards, let's say 2022, 23, you know, new people coming into the HR space. What would your advice be for them? What are the three
Okay.
things that they should be looking out for?
I just have one thing
Only
because
one
that's
thing,
what
okay.
I just implemented for my interns. Okay. So one item which is called self-reflection document, which cover three parts. The first part is within the few short time of I want them to revisit the purpose of HR.
Okay.
They need
Put
to
that.
be able to articulate the meaning and purpose in this function.
Mm,
Because if they understand why we are here, it makes a lot of difference. The second part I want them to look at is very simple. It's called value chain of the business.
okay.
Because what I do in the exercise is to get them to understand where HR plays in the value chain. Okay.
Wow.
The third part of it is find something interesting and small to do because I need them to have confidence. Correct? If they do a small win, I don't expect them to do big stuff, please. Everybody gets disappointed. Find something which is impactful to their meaning. It could be a chat with someone and get that off the ground. Because with that, it creates confidence.
Right.
So 3 parts again. First part is find back the meaning of why we are here. It's not textbook, because a lot of times you go to universities, they will tell you, this person say conditioning. Yeah, conditioning. Then they forget, they leave it with the lecturers. They need to find their meaning and purpose. Secondly, understand the business. Okay. Third but not least is to utilize what they have learned. Find a small initiative. Because that small little wins go a long way.
Right. No, I like that. Thank you very much, because it's what you call a self-reflection document. So I'm just going to take the first one, self-reflection, because when you ask them to think through the meaning and purpose of HR, right? I'm assuming that they will probably go deeper to also align their own purpose with the purpose
Yes.
of the work.
Yes.
Has there been times that you've come across where people find that it's disjointed, it's not what they really want?
Definite. Then they will fears that HR is not where they want to be.
Which is fine too.
It's fine too, because at the end of the day, different people are suited for different things. Correct? I need a commercial person to be really results driven, drive all the way. That's life.
Sure.
Correct? If that is their motive in life, so be it. It's okay. We need to accept of who we are and move along. Not everybody is suited to be in the HR profession. That's life.
Right.
Accept who we are, understand the meaning where maybe 10 years down the road they will come back.
Okay. And Muller has a very interesting question for you. She got excited.
I know. I don't know whether it's an interesting question, but I know the answer will be an interesting answer. I was just going to ask you about meaning and purpose, because that's ideal, right? Because if everyone can connect, not just HR, if everyone can connect to meaning and purpose, we all will be serving the purpose the role requires and why the role was created in the first place. And I think what I really appreciate about all the things that you've said in the last 1 hour is really going back to the meaning of HR and why HR, was created in the first place, right? And of course, I
Yes.
love the last part where you said, if people cannot find meaning and purpose, maybe this is not your space. And I'm just wondering, I think it's not just in HR, because if you can't find meaning and purpose in HR, fine, you need to go somewhere where hopefully you can find meaning and purpose, right? But there are people who walk around where this is just a job,
Yep.
right?
And basically, I will tell them, sorry, this is not for you.
Okay, and that would be your take, right? I mean, which, well, I think they're lucky if they can hear it from you. But when you look, I mean, you've with so much of passion and so much of clarity, you would have seen people from all walks of life coming through your experience, right? What do you see as the greatest stumbling block for people to connect to meaning and purpose in their roles? Not just HR, but generally to your role, to their roles.
Okay. I would say a lot of times it's self-limiting beliefs. And that becomes a big stumbling block. Yeah. And it is why I say that is because I went to a company and some of us will say, oh, does it only applies to one generation? Let me quote a very simple example. I used to have a team which comes from those who just came out with 2-3 years experience, those who have been in the company for the last 10 years and never do overtime, and those people who are retiring. So I got a magnitude of different age group and different backgrounds, right? And when we ignite the fire in them, the one of the young ones actually worked 24 hours to get the things out for me, and I never even give the person a deadline. Interesting. Then you say, okay, maybe to the young people, the Gen Z or whatever he found, can we do the same to people who has been in the company for many years? So one of my team has never done overtime in her whole life in the company until I came along. And until now, she always remind me, You are the person who makes me voluntarily work overtime. Okay? And the last one in retiring, the same thing. The person decides to come in and help. I wait for the person. It's not the age. It's about passion, trying to create a difference. And it is possible as long as we try to ignite that fire, stop them from thinking that they are worthless. It makes a difference. Why am I in HR? Because I want a story to tell. I want a story that is meaningful. I want all the people that pass through me to be meaningful. In fact, I tell my people this. No matter how long and short time you stay with me, if you learn nothing from me, I'm a failure.
Nice.
Okay, and in fact, when it comes to objective setting, even in my own objectives, I put it very, very clearly. I have an objective which says that I need to make corporate successful, I need to make my team successful. And I owe it to myself. If I cannot make people successful, then I have a question. I don't expect to make everybody successful. That's not possible.
Sure,
That's
fair
not
enough. Yeah.
all right. But if I can create impact in many of the people which I meet and make them successful HR practitioners wherever they are, I'm fine. I always tell my people, with the skills you learn, as long as you don't harm anyone, I'm fine. And if you want to go somewhere where the grass is greener, just go.
Right. No,
And
thank you very
usually,
much.
my colleagues or my staff will always tell me where they want to go before they make a decision. Likewise, I tell my boss, I always give them advance notice. Exactly about that. I say, look, if down the road I see that this job don't require me, I have a conversation with my boss. And I never give my boss surprises that I'm going for interview because it doesn't make sense. I have a situation where my boss drove me for interview sessions. Anything works.
Right. Excellent.
Nice.
No,
Nice.
thank you very much. Amala, do you have a question? Sorry.
No, actually, I what I picked up from Jonathan is actually three things that kept coming, but I think he sealed it with belief in self, right? And what I heard from Jonathan was, if people believe in themselves and
Yes.
they know that they are enough as individuals, then they will want to contribute to make a difference in whatever role that they play. And that's what Jonathan has been saying with meaning and purpose. Because if I know I can make a difference, and I know I have all it takes to make the difference in the role that's given to me, then I'll continue asking the why in the business, in my role and in the business, and keep contributing. And I think, wherever I am, if I keep doing that, businesses will put me in front of the customers. And that's where, you're not just continuing to sustain the business, but you are adding value in the role that you play. And I think he took us through the loop in with like various different
That's right.
examples, right? Which came
Yeah.
back over and over again. So I feel like, okay, now I can see how it's all coming together. So thank you
Nice.
very, very much, Jonathan. Before I pass it on to Ashok to close, I really want to thank Vinita Joseph for putting in so many comments, because I think there were quite a number of people on LinkedIn who went quiet, but you kept it alive, Vinita, with both validation and affirmation and questions and summaries. So Vinita, thank you for joining us. And with that, Ashok, I'll pass it to you to ask the last final fire question if you have for Jonathan before we close.
You know what? I think I'm going to ask him a lot of questions privately because we're coming to the 1 hour mark. But thank you very much, Jonathan. I just want to summarize what you have shared for us about the how HR powers businesses. For you, it's about helping people find their voice, focusing on the demand side of HR, helping businesses using the right tools, right, to help businesses flourish in the sense. And you want to help people flourish too. And it's about aligning purposes and meaning by overcoming limiting beliefs.
Yep.
Do you have any final advice for people in general before we say goodbye to you? And thank you very much.
There's no advice. I just want everybody to believe in ourselves. If we disbelieve, we can always make the difference. And you can do it. I can do it. Everyone can do it.
Right. No, thank you very, very much, Jonathan. We really appreciate your time. right? The hour that you spend with us and all the people who have logged in. Uh, we all appreciate. We just love your passion, your energy that you brought in, and you've truly showed us how HR really powers business with that perception change, the mindset
Thank you.
change.
Yeah, and
Thank you very much.
if I can add right now, I know how Jonathan gets people to do work without overtime.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Both Ashok
Thank
and
Yeah,
you.
Bala. Thank you very much for having me.
thank you very much. It's really been
Thank you very much.
inspiring.
And have a great long weekend, Jonathan.
Thank
Jonathan
you.
spelled wrongly,
You too.
and I like that little teddy bear behind you who's still got COVID, is it?
Yes.
No, thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
So as we say goodbye to Jonathan, oh my goodness, I haven't taken down. Sorry, my flu and cough is
No
really
worries,
bad.
I understand. I get
It
it.
was okay until Jonathan started talking. But I don't think I've taken down as many quotes as I did today. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
in terms
lot of ideas. If for all our guests who have logged in or who will be viewing these videos going forward, there's a lot of tools and ideas that Jonathan have shared to help you become better than who you are, regardless of whether you're in the HR space or not, right? But if you're in the HR space, he's given you very creative ideas to bring HR not only to the next level, but the next strategic level, right? With
And if
that,
I may say,
sure.
I think he is asking us to be where we were called to be in
That's
the
true.
first place.
That's true.
So with that,
Right. With
for
that,
those who are
thank you all very
celebrating
much.
Easter,
Mhm.
for those who are celebrating Easter, blessed Easter. Otherwise, have a long weekend and do all the things that you love with meaning and purpose, as Jonathan would say it.
Right.
Bye.
Right. Thank you all, everyone, and see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.